Good evening. I'd like to call our work session in order at 5:30. The work session is regarding the Bezos Academy. And I just have a couple announcements that Director Clark, Director Farah, Chief Accountability Officer Dr. Jewel Harmon, and from the Bezos Academy, Mr. Manuel Ima is attending in person, and Mr. Miguel Rogue and Mr. Will Weiner will be attending the meeting via Zoom, and Vice President Bento is running a little late. He'll be joining us soon. So now I'd like to call on our Interim Superintendent, Israel Vela, to introduce.
Thank you, President Hamada. I'd like to call on Randy Heath, our Interim Chief of School Operations and Academic Support, to introduce our guests today.
Good evening, President Hamada, Superintendent Vela, and members of the board. I'm happy to introduce today our visitors from the Bezos Academy. We've been in conversations with them for quite some time and really exploring some great opportunities that we feel would be great for our Kent community. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it off over here to Emmanuel.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, President Hamada.
Yes.
Awesome. Superintendent Vela and members of the board, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Emmanuel Ima, and I am here representing Bezos Academy, and I'm seeking your approval at the end of the day for a partnership with our academy. So I will take the time to just play this video, which for me, I believe it's a summary of practically everything we want to discuss today. So it is a very important, what we call our anthem video in Bezos Academy.
Every single thing we do begins and ends with the child and the needs of the child. If we serve the family, it's because we're serving the child. Bezos Academy is a nonprofit, tuition-free, Montessori-inspired preschool network. We believe that every child deserves the advantages that an excellent preschool provides. Unfortunately, only half of the children in the United States are in a preschool. And the reason for that is, one, just accessibility. There aren't enough seats. Secondly, and as importantly, it's just too expensive. It's not affordable for most families. And that's the space that we want to address.
Every single child is worthy and is absolutely capable and deserves a high quality education.
Providing early childhood education, it's a public good. It's like infrastructure, so when you think of roads and bridges, they help build communities and they help communities thrive, and that's exactly what early childhood education does.
What we know now is that who we are and our potential is dramatically impacted by what happens from birth to about 5 or 6 years old. That's why it's so important that we invest in preschool education.
When she comes home, Aaliyah is so excited to tell me about her day. She asks me questions that she learned in school. They really rely on independent work, which is great.
The children get to explore the environment and find what is interesting to them.
It's about removing the obstacles so they can get to what they need to do so that they can have that self-actualization and growth.
Not only do we build a love of learning, but we also set them up for success in the future.
What does it take to build an academy from start to finish, especially during a pandemic? We come into a community that needs a preschool. We seek out a partner who also understands the importance of high-quality preschool, and their contribution is a facility. And then we come into that facility and we perform all of the leasehold improvements that will create a beautiful, safe environment for the children. And we launch the school together.
The partnership between Wesley and Bezos Academy has been one that has been very inspirational for, I think, both parties.
Well, hello, I'm Shirley Tollison. I'm a resident at Wesley Gardens in Des Moines, Washington. It's a joy to see the children on our campus feel that it's a very worthwhile cause.
This is a tremendous program, and we just want to support it in any way we can.
Big things start small. Our first school was a single classroom with a maximum of 20 students. We see having hundreds of Bezos Academies across the country. And when I think about that, I think about the children. And over time, we'll affect them in a positive way and probably anyone that they touch in their lives.
It's about time that every child and family in this country is deemed worthy and given the opportunity to experience a loving, welcoming environment that is just for them.
So, to restate lots of things that you heard our president, Mike George, said in that video, I looked at what the Education Research and Data Center of the Office of Financial Management of Washington State, the report that they say that the achievement gap starts as an opportunity gap that is evident as early as 9 months of age. Children are the products of their families, their neighborhoods, communities, and also the state system that support them. So early learning providers like Bezos Academy, we play a key role in supporting families with young children by creating intentional learning opportunities that build on children's strengths and interests, while helping them gain the academic and social skills they will need to be successful not only in kindergarten, but beyond. At Bezos Academy, once again, I want to restate, we believe that all children should be given the same opportunities for a great start, regardless of their abilities, their backgrounds, or their family income. That is why we are building a network of tuition-free Montessori-inspired preschools in underserved communities to ensure that as many children as possible will have the same opportunities to learn, to grow, to thrive, and to succeed. What is the philosophy driving Bezos Academy? Much of our approach can be traced to Amazon's principle. We have combined the innovative and fast-paced culture of Amazon with a deep bench of education talent to approach this opportunity in early learning space through a fresh and unique lens. At Bezos Academy, our philosophy is child first. The child and their family are at the center of everything we do. We treat each child as a valued customer, and we are constantly applying what we learn to our model with the goal of providing ever-improving educational experiences to our customers, and those are the children. We are licensed by the Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families, that's DCYF, who are responsible for ensuring that our preschool meets minimum state requirements. Although Montessori is our foundation, we don't strictly adhere to the Montessori pedagogy. As a result, we have not sought Montessori accreditation. We plan to layer on our Montessori-inspired approach as we learn what works. We opened our first school in 2020, and we opened additional schools last year here in the state of Washington, and we are learning. So we will constantly assess and reassess our work, modify our approach to meet the needs of children and their families as we learn. So let's look at our model. What really makes our program work? Our preschools offer year-round programming, 5 days a week for children ages 3 to 5 years old. We believe that this schedule is not only beneficial for children's learning and growth, but it also makes it easier for parents and other adults who need to pursue academic activities outside the home. The academic day runs from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., with extended learning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., and then 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So the children will be with us from 8 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. We seek out the best educators, and we provide competitive pay and benefits. We are committed to ensuring that each one of our schools exists as a part of the community, not outside it. This means that the value we bring is both long-term and community-focused. For instance, we prioritize hiring and training teachers from the community. Our goal is to hire and train teachers who reflect the students and the families that we serve. We work with parents to promote their involvement in their children's education, and we work with our partners to leverage our own resources in ways that enhance both our program and the surrounding community. Of course, our program is at no cost to the families that we serve. Now, let me talk about the structure of our schools. For each of our schools, we have a head of school. Every classroom has a lead teacher and 2 assistant teachers for a maximum of 20 children per classroom. We have mixed age classes, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. They are grouped together in a class. This model actually supports the development of skills. For example, the older children develop leadership skills, and then the younger ones benefit by learning from the older ones. We provide 3 high-quality meals and snacks each day for the children. We, as an organization, we are also committed to continuous development of staff. For example, we have a leadership institute for our heads of schools and a summer institute for our lead teachers and assistant teachers. Our model actually is a product of decades of experience from the deep education bench that we have. But we are constantly testing our own practices, and we will strive to improve the experience as we learn and grow. Let's get into the meat of why we are here today. That's talking about partnerships. At Bezos Academy, when we talk about partnerships, we start first by collecting as much data as possible to help us narrow our focus on the communities that need more high-quality preschool the most. We identify eligible communities based on answers to 3 questions. Number 1, does the community have a high concentration of low-income families? Number 2, how many 3 to 5-year-old children live in the community? And then number 3, what is the gap between the number of preschool-age children and the full-day, year-round licensed preschool seats? What we do is that we look for communities that have a large and growing access gap. We are especially focused on serving families who earn a little too much to qualify for fully subsidized programs like Head Start, but still they cannot afford to pay for preschool. Under our admissions policy, students from households that earn up to 400% of the federal poverty level are eligible for our program. We also provide admission preference to children that are experiencing homelessness, those that are in foster care, or from households that earn less than 200% of FPL. As you well know, Head Start, I think the max is 130% of FPL. So our program accommodates children from families above that. Our fundamental objective when we come into a community is to increase access to preschool education for low-income children. The communities we serve do not have enough affordable preschools to meet their needs. So we come in to supplement and increase existing capacity of preschool seats. We build relationships with local partners who haven't previously had the resources or the opportunities to bring new preschools to their communities. We are collaborative in operations and very intentional not to work to upend or negatively impact existing players in the early childhood education ecosystem. What we do is that we initiate relationships with other childcare providers, local leaders like yourselves, community serving organizations, and we find ways to support and integrate into current efforts. Now, there are 3 ways to partner with us. We, in Bezos Academy, we are especially interested in collaborating with organizations such as school districts, senior living communities, as you heard from that video, community centers, housing authorities, affordable housing developers, and local government, the municipalities. We aim to connect with trusted organizations in communities who recognize the need for early learning services. And there are several ways to partner with us. Bezos Academy partners with organizations that have both surplus space, which is why we are here, and a desire to serve children in their community. We are prepared to improve the spaces we occupy, and we cover all our ongoing operations costs. We do not, however, pay rent to our partners. Now, I want us to look at why are we here in Kent? Because that will be the question. These are some stats about the city of Kent. I have stated earlier on that we prioritize communities where census and other data indicate that there is a need for more affordable preschools. Kent has been on our radar as we dug into the data. There are great schools and programs in this area, but there is a clear gap between the raw number of low-income preschool-age children living in Kent and the number of seats available in existing early learning programs. Let us look at some of the publicly available data. Multiple zip codes here in Kent are classified as extreme childcare access deserts by DCYF. The Office of Superintendent for Public Instruction reports that over 50% of students here in Kent who enter kindergarten do so without the foundational skills they need to be successful. Over 13% of the population for whom poverty status is determined in Kent live below the poverty line. And based on provider data for preschools listed on Winning, the average monthly cost for preschool in Kent is over $1,200 every month. Think about the families, and we are talking about over 13% who are living in poverty. Think about their ability to afford preschool education for their children. Then going to the Kent School District data, 50% of your schools and your academies are in Title I school-wide program. That is why we are here in Kent. That is why we are seeking your partnership to serve the children. So, what are we looking for? There is an obvious need for affordable preschools in Kent. We are here as a partner to increase preschool seat capacity in your district. How do we want to make it happen? Our best partnerships are based on a genuine desire to support children in our communities. We are having conversations with the City of Kent, with local colleges, with senior living providers, housing authorities, public schools, religious organizations, and nonprofits that are focused on education and community service here in the city. We started conversations way back with Interim Superintendent Vella and his team about a partnership between Kent School District and Bezos Academy to support more kids in your community. From those conversations, we believe that Kent School District shares the vision and passion of Bezos Academy and will identify and provide locations that meet our space needs and will be convenient to the families we aim to serve in Kent. Together, we can make a real impact. Your district provides the space and the connection to the community. We bring the school to life and deliver a great experience for years to come. We feel the urgency of now because the gap between children in need and available preschool seats is widening daily. Now, what do we provide? What do we bring to the table? Our commitment is to support children and their families in a way that works for your community. When a partner provides an appropriate space to us, Bezos Academy, we make the necessary investments to transform the space into a warm, welcoming preschool environment. And we furnish it with everything required to open a new Montessori-inspired preschool. We envision that over the course of the first 10 years, we will spend millions of dollars to operate at least a 2-classroom school in Kent. We have high standards that all our schools must follow, including meeting or exceeding all state and local early childhood education licensing requirements. As I mentioned earlier, we cover all the operating expenses for our preschool programs at no cost to either the families we serve or to our community hosts. We hire, we train, we develop, and we pay talented educators. And as I mentioned earlier, we will seek to hire from within your community. And we provide everything that the children need during their day with us, including breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. What we ask is for an initial 10-year or more commitment because we are committed to this work for the long haul. And we want the families and the communities we serve to have as much predictability as possible. So let me share a visual of our first school that is located here in Des Moines, and that will give you an idea in terms of the type of investment we make to improve the spaces. Where's my good friend Emilio? Okay, I'll need to get this going.
Well, is there supposed to be a video on your website?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Doesn't seem like video is there as an option. Is it the floor
It's
plan?
actually- Okay, you can go to the floor plan instead, but there is a video here.
Yeah, I fortunately don't see video to play.
Okay, let's look at the floor plan.
Okay, want to play this one?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All right, here we go. Do you want to?
Yeah, it will roll like that. So this is what the space that we transformed. You heard the executive director of Wesley Homes, our first partner here in the state of Washington. He talked about our partnership. This is how we transformed their space. So this is Bezos Academy standard, and we keep improving on this. As you can see, every student in Bezos Academy learns in well-functioning, safe, and modern space. Our facilities, when we build them out, we consider them valuable community assets, and we will maintain them to increase their life expectancy and comply with, and as a matter of fact, exceed all state-mandated standards. Thank you. So we are nimble. And when we identify a partner that is ready to work with us, we can move very fast. I ask you today, as a board, to endorse a partnership between the Kent School District and Bezos Academy. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up to discussion. And help me if somebody up there is wanting to speak.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
I love hearing that we'll hire in the community. I'm just curious if these academies are unionized. Are the employees who work there part of unions or associations?
Looks like our head of operations, Miguel, you want to, yes, here is Miguel, and you want to chime in there.
No, we're not unionized.
Okay. And then I guess the other thing where you talk about your head of schools go to trainings, can you tell me what trainings they attend and who sponsors them?
So we sponsor all the trainings. Our trainings are a work in progress, but I can tell you what we did last year and the year before. Actually, let's just go with last year, which is the most
Last
current,
year.
and give you a sense of what we're planning for this upcoming year. Sorry, I've been speaking all day and my voice is totally shot.
I feel that.
So hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Clearly.
It's not just because I've been yelling at my children all day. So we run two programs for them during the summer. One we call the Leadership Institute, which is a 12-ish week program where we get our heads of school ready to run one of these schools, so that we have similar standards across the board. And then we have our teachers show up for Teacher Institute, which is roughly 6 weeks. In addition to that, here in Washington, we already have a regional head of school and a series of coaches. And the idea is that, we're gonna teach these folks to be great heads of school, but we also realize that, classroom teaching only goes so far, and coaching is critical. And coaching comes in two forms. One is sort of the Montessori side of the house. We have experts in Montessori development, and the other one is through a partnership with other heads of school. So on a monthly basis, our heads of school get together. We facilitate personal development days, and sometimes that network is actually better than anything else. because they're all facing similar issues, whether it be, issues in the classroom, communication with parents, whatever else. This is a great sounding board. Last thing I'll tell you is that the way we're organized, and this is, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here, is our idea is that we want to make sure that our heads of school are really focused on education. So our goal, is that roughly 75% of their time is around, the education side of the house and not on operations. So our operations team takes care of the majority of what would normally be called operational issues. So, anything from, what's happening with the internet to let's update the food menus for the upcoming month to, the pest control person. Make sure that they show up. Again, depending on the buildings we occupy, in some cases, we have to take care of things like that. And obviously, my team runs all the improvements to the buildings as well, so that that's not something we would ask our heads of school to do.
Thank you. I guess my last question would be, I know that many of our schools around here, we have to follow like OSPI standards and guidelines, and I'm always curious, like, are we accredited? Are you accredited? No, we are. Are you accredited with programs like NIAC or something like that? Or do you just kind of follow your own standards? Do you follow OSPI guidelines when it comes to preschool education? So I'm just kind of curious about that.
We have our own standards. We are, some of the training that we've done this summer, we've hired out, we've contracted with a Montessori sort of teaching, I'm forgetting that it's like an acronym. I know Will, our GC, is on the call as well. Do you remember the name of the organization we contracted with?
Yeah.
That's it.
Bezos.
And I'm happy to jump in. Good evening, all. I'm General Counsel for Bezos Academy. We've partnered with the National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector, otherwise known as NCMPS, to help collaborate in our content preparation. In addition, we also follow all DCYF educational and curriculum standards. So they set minimum standards for the types of education that we must meet in terms of content, but we go above and beyond that, working through Montessori materials, again, with NCMPS.
Got it, but you're not accredited through them.
Correct. We are not a Montessori accredited organization, and that is because we do not solely follow Montessori pedagogy. We take what we see as the best elements of different pedagogies.
Okay. I guess I'm just thinking, like, overall, like, it feels like I've always been taught if something's too good to be true, it probably is. So I feel like I feel like you're offering a lot. So I guess besides the benefit of like educating our very young students, like what else is in it, I guess? Like how else do we benefit from this as a school district? Or is that philosophical? I'm not even sure.
Well,
Or is that hypothetical?
So I guess I'll try to answer your question. I don't know if you asked this question, but I'm going to try to answer it as well. So, our founder, Jeff, I think you might be asking, why did he begin Bezos Academy or decide to go do this? Because you're saying it feels too good to be true. And I think it's when Jeff was very young, his family didn't have much money. But education was a big priority. He was fortunate enough to be able to attend Montessori preschool, and he credits that experience with starting him down the path of becoming a creative thinker and an innovator and a leader. So I think part of his, again, I'm speaking for myself here, not Jeff, but this is his motivation, comes from a very personal place. I'm not sure that's the question you were trying to ask, but I was trying to read the room a little bit.
I mean, yes, that's good to know. In total, I'm concerned, like, you kind of follow your own standards. I know there's Montessori-like. I always think about our workers, so like unionizing I think is really important, and to not have that option. Like, I'm thinking about our workers, and like, supporting students is really important, but also like the people who are going to be working just want to make sure that they're protected, they're getting what they need, and et cetera. So those are the things on my mind, and this sounds like a great program, so I appreciate the presentation, but I just have some other things in the back of the head I'm thinking about as well.
Yeah, no, and we welcome those kinds of questions. And just by the way, like, just in terms of some of your questions, just note that 2 years ago today, there was 3 of us, sitting across from each other, like saying, how the hell are we gonna do this? And so, and now we have 5 schools in operation. Our goal is to build, 1,000 schools across the US. And over the next, obviously a few years. So that's the kind of, and by the way, 1,000 is not like a real number. It's just like that type of scale is what we're aiming to do. And we've just recently announced that we're launching school in Dallas and so there's or in Texas, or Dallas, Texas, I guess. And so we will be moving across the country as well.
Yeah, additionally, I wanted to say that part of the strategic objectives of the district is to have children ready, a certain percentage number of children ready for kindergarten. And I do not believe that the district is achieving that. A lot depends on preschool preparation, education. And when you look at the data, you will see that many school districts, some of them, the office of the OSPI that you talked about, reports that even up to 70%. I was speaking with district superintendent last week, and he was telling me that in their district, up to 80% of the children come into kindergarten not prepared. That is a major challenge. This is the kind of thing that we are trying to solve for in underserved communities. When you talk about staff, we hire staff and we provide great benefits and remunerations to our staff. So when you talk about unionizing, they are all Bezos Academy staff from beginning to the end, everyone, and we provide everything for them.
I see that Director Clark has unmuted. Did you have something to say, Director Clark?
Yes, if I could. Clearly, when I look at preschool age kids, their parents tend to be younger, and we're talking about a population that already struggles with poverty. And so one of the constant challenges that we face, even just within the school district and our regular program, is parent involvement, when in fact the parents are working and their lives are overwhelmed with the situation they're currently living in. So you said in your program that you want parental involvement, but you have the same population we're talking about. And I'm just curious of how you offset that.
Yes, so parental involvement, what we've seen to date is that it's not always possible for the exact reasons you just mentioned. Parents need to drop off their kids early and go to work, and they're super busy. So we don't require it, but at the end of the day, we're trying to establish some degree of community. So when we launch schools, we have visiting days, so the children get to meet and see the space they're going to be going into, so they're less nervous. And then we throw little pizza parties so that the kids can play together a little bit and parents get to know each other. But it is not required because of those very reasons.
If I may add as well, we leverage technology as well through an app called Right Wheel, which enables our staff to take photos and updates if parents provide consent for doing so. We'll be sending real-time updates and observational notes about how students are doing during the day. So parents are able to receive that and track that. And then when they pick up their student, they will be able to have conversations with their head of school and staff about what they saw through the Right Wheel interaction. So we try to be innovative to provide that sort of experience and engagement for families that may not traditionally have the time or the bandwidth to be engaging in the way that we would all like to see.
Director Bettinger, did you have some questions?
Yeah, I have some as well, if Director Clark is finished. Okay, so I think some of my questions have been answered. So you don't follow the federal and state mandates outlined for Head Start and ECAP, but you also said in the presentation that these students are, so you're saying that these students do not qualify for Head Start and ECAP?
No, not that they do not qualify.
They don't
We are saying that you have a waiting list of even those who qualify that you are unable to serve. And we are not just coming in to provide additional capacity to serve those ones, but also there are those ones on the cliff who, based on their income, their earning, the families, do not qualify for state-funded programs. So we have raised the bar to 400% of federal poverty level to be able to accommodate them, because otherwise, most of them don't send their children to preschools.
Okay, so Kent School District has a waiting list for Head Start and ECAP students.
To clarify, Director Bettinger, that is, within the Head Start ECAP program, there are only so many sections. They're called sections. In those sections, we don't even have enough to serve those who do qualify. Well, what they're saying here is that the cliff, where there are even more that don't qualify.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Exactly.
Okay, and then you also said you have a deep bench of educational talent. So, and I've done a lot of research, so who is in charge of your educational program that has experience in the educational field? Like what specific person?
Our head of education is Michael Abeo, and he was the head of early ed for Chicago Public Schools.
Okay, thank you. And then how many classrooms are you looking at that site in Kent?
Currently, we are speccing for 5 classrooms, which will serve 100 students. I mean, think about that, multiply that over the years, and hopefully we'll be able to build this partnership and expand it to serve more children.
Okay, and so my notes show that the first the board heard about this was in May of 2021, that Dr. Watts reached out to you and Scott Edison. So are there any other partners in Kent that you've discussed this with potential sites other than Kent School District?
Yes, we are in conversation with the City of Kent.
Okay.
And there are also other housing authority and affordable housing providers in Kent that we are having conversations with.
Great. That's all my questions for now.
Director Farah, I don't see you unmuted. Do you have any questions, or don't want to skip over you here before I ask? Go ahead.
I don't have any questions at this moment.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of quick questions. I'm wondering, first of all, the program at Wesley, I took the time to speak to the mayor of Des Moines and in that program to see how that was working out. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, you haven't gotten that going in full force. What I did find exciting in that was how the seniors were going to be involved eventually in that. Is that in the works in this Kent facility, or is that just what you're going to do because it is at Wesley Homes?
Well, our intention at every given time, that is why we say our program is Montessori inspired. Mm-hmm. And if you also notice, our extended day between 8 to 9 and then 3:30 to 5:30 is kept aside for such programming. There's something unique about our Wesley site because it is located right there in the senior living facility. So it's easier to begin to develop an intergenerational programming. So we are very open to work with our partners to develop programs that will serve the community where we are located.
And by the way, the Wesley Homes community are sort of chomping at the bit to interact with the children.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I have some friends that actually live there, and they're former teachers, and they were just.
Yeah, so the things that we're planning, just so you know, there's a couple of things. So I was there when we put the building together. I was there drilling the shelves together, and they staged a steel drum orchestra, just for us, to welcome us. When the first day of school, the senior community, or the community from Wesley Homes, brought balloons and welcome signs. And then, the kids go for walks around the campus, and that's a very popular thing. In addition, when we built the backyard, we created a little side garden for vegetable growing and flower growing. And, look, pandemic, senior living centers, this is something we have to be very, very careful with. But they're chomping at the bit to come grow vegetables and do gardening with the kids. We really are excited about that part.
And from just a practical sense, who pays the utilities and all that? Are we responsible for that, or are you guys responsible for all the ongoing costs of every day?
Yeah, we pay those, and in some cases, it's really hard to tell whose utilities are what if things are not well divided. So we can work out a percentage or something reasonable, especially for buildings where we don't occupy the whole building.
And because, I did some research today, I had some more time and looked up in it, and one of the things that I've seen across the board is you don't seem to come into the communities and talk to them and ask, want to be involved and put your money into the communities that already have existing organizations to better them. So do you feel your model and your control adds more? Obviously you must, is why you're not trying to put your money at other things that are already existing, that are struggling, right?
Yeah, the worst case scenario for us is if, our goal is to find parts of the country, cities that have a big access gap, right? And so the worst case scenario is, we walk into a community that has plenty of seats, and we bring a school, and then, it becomes competition. We have no interest in doing that. That is against our mission to do that, to take that approach. So that's when Emmanuel went through kind of our process for finding communities. It starts with data, it starts with outreach, because a lot of time the data, folks that live in the community know the community a lot better, right? And then we're trying to calculate that access gap, right? So how many kids live here and how many seats exist? And where that delta is big, chances are we are not displacing any other preschools.
No, I'm very well familiar of the need, and I've served on the Covington Human Service Commission, and we've sponsored and toured all the ACAP, ECAP, and seen the need and what they do with that, and how many more dollars are needed in that area. My concern is that you're making a commitment to 10 years. In that commitment, what happens after the 10 years?
We start with a 10-year commitment with a 5-year sort of re-up.
Mm-hmm.
And if the need is still there, we'd like to continue. We obviously are going to invest a bunch of money into setting up the school and hiring a bunch of teachers. What we don't know is what's going to happen to the community itself, whether it's going to, be gentrified, or maybe the families move. I'm not, we don't know. That's about as far into the future as the majority of our partnerships feel comfortable signing deals with us for. So that's how we've arrived at this 10+5 deal. Would you prefer that this be a longer deal?
No, I'm just trying to see your vision long-term. First of all, it's quite a commitment to any school district to make a 10-year lease. I can see the need, definitely. I can see how this could be a good partnership. It's just we really don't have much experience with Jeff Bezos or how he operates and right in that kind of market. And so we'd want to, kind of look and develop our opinion as it goes along, as I see it. And we want to make sure that all our community is behind this in your organization from day to day, in the way you run your organization. How do the people, the families that you take in, do they have any say in the day-to-day of what goes on in the operation, or how do you speak to them and their needs? I missed that part.
Well, I mean, so obviously, like as a dad, I've dropped off my kids at a bunch of different schools. Now they're teenagers, so it's a little bit different. But we have to make sure our families, feel like the environment that they're leaving their kids, their little 3, 4, and 5-year-old kids, they're comfortable with. So it starts with, when the application process starts, we reach out to parents. We oftentimes help them through the application process because of all sorts of different reasons, whether it be access to the internet, difficulty with English and other things. And then once, we run our admissions process and somebody's accepted, we invite them into the school to do a visit. We do one-on-one visits with the head of school and the teachers, and they kind of experience a space, and we walk them through kind of like what a typical day looks like. A lot of what I'm going to say is changed a bit through this COVID peak, right? Where we now just say, parents, please don't come in to our school, right? Just drop off your kids. But during that period where COVID was a little bit lower, we invited parents to observe. So Montessori classrooms, I'm not sure how many know all about them. I now know a lot more about it since I've been doing this full-time for 2.5 years. There's observation chairs, so you actually sit and you watch what's happening during the day. We've done little things like made murals together. We had one of our parents who's an artist, and he, outlined kind of a vista and a space needle, and all the kids painted that together with their parents. So it was like a parent-child day type of thing. And we survey our parents, and there we try to survey them frequently, but not so frequently that's annoying for them, right? So, so that in terms of sort of the community itself, I believe it was Dr. Clark or Mr. Clark. Sorry, I don't mean to. Was saying that what he said is very correct. Like, we don't always have parent volunteers that want to be in the classroom just yet. So we have to balance what we ask of parents and what they can give. And then, we feel good that the majority of the kids that are in our classrooms stay. And this is a really stable place for them. And, it's really helpful to have a full day a preschool because those are fairly rare. And it's year-round, so we are in session all summer long as well.
Thank you. I have one other quick question that I would be amiss if I don't ask. My daughter's been a physical education teacher for years. We have an obesity problem in the state of Washington. How do you play into the physical activity in your school?
Yeah, so I think that it's a serious problem. Glad to answer this question. So there's sort of two components. One is how much time we try to keep the kids outside. So it's typically more, but it's a minimum of 90 minutes is usually what we do. And by the way, we all live in Washington, and it's so sometimes a little rainy. But we have these little jumpsuits that are waterproof, and they don't really seem to care when it's raining or terrible out. So that's one piece. And the second piece is what food we can provide them. And so at Wesley, for example, we use an outfit called Fresh and Local, which provides fresh and local food. In some of other organizations, or some of the other schools we've launched, we've done partnerships with Tacoma Public Schools and Pacific Beach Public Schools, so that they provide food for us. And there we're a little bit more subject to what is on the menu. We're obviously advocating for less sugary snacks, and to have a menu that has a little bit of variety.
I appreciate your thorough answer to my questions and the opportunity for us to look at this. I want to make sure, are there any other further questions? Director Bettinger?
One more question. So I know when I was in the corporate world, my kids were little and we had on-site daycare where I worked. And so does this model, does Amazon just in general have on-site daycares that they use?
Yeah. So just, Jeff is associated with Amazon, and I'm an ex-Amazon employee, but we are not associated with them. We're a nonprofit, and so we have no association, well, except our founder is the same, right? So there's no association here.
But Amazon in Kent does employ, has employees, because we have there's a warehouse in Kent. So, but there's no, you haven't tried this model at Amazon or anything like this. I guess my concern is just it's October 2020 is when you launched the Wesley Homes, and I used to live in Des Moines, very close to that. I would walk by there all the time, so I know exactly where that is. I guess, when we're talking about models and education, it's a very, very new model. So I'm just trying to figure out if it's been employed anywhere else, so there's measurements and standards.
Yeah, so the first year we launched one school with one classroom, so that was, and then this last year we launched 4 additional schools, one in, 2 in Tacoma. I don't know how well you guys, if you know Tacoma well, but one at McCarver Elementary, the other one is at Roosevelt Elementary School. So, in Roosevelt case, we are really embedded in an elementary school. So we have just another classroom within an elementary school, so we share hallways and whatnot. Then we built out a school out at Pacific Beach by the Quinault Nation, kind of out by Seabrook, that area. And oh my gosh, I'm having a mental breakdown here.
You want to talk Federal Way?
Yeah, and the other one's in Federal Way. It's the old DeVry University building, which is this enormous building that they use for surplus classrooms and a bunch of elementary school and preschool age kids. And there, we currently have 2 classrooms, and we're expanding to, well, we'll see if we expand to 5 classrooms this upcoming year. And then in terms of measurements, that this is something I'm very passionate about. And actually, it's also part of my team. So we have an impact team led by an educational PhD as well. And here we're trying to figure out what assessments do we do for children once they come in to ensure that they, if they may or may not need additional services. And then so that we measure kind of where they are. We also interact with the local elementary school principals where they're likely to go to the following year after they graduate from Bezos Academy, I guess, to figure out what the sort of readiness exams look like. And through that process, we've learned that, some of these readiness exams involve using a computer and a mouse. So a bunch of the kids didn't know how to use a mouse. So we've actually thought through how we're gonna, through the day-to-day say, well, this is how you would use a mouse, right? And this is how it moves that little arrow, which is a really basic thing. But if you're trying to take a readiness test of sorts and you don't know what that thing is because you're used to tapping iPads or whatever phones, it is kind of a big deal.
Well, I don't mean to cut you short. We're now at 6:29. I do want to thank all of you for an excellent presentation, the opportunity to give us the opportunity to look at this program and see if we can work as partners. And all of us, I'm sure, appreciate the presentation today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, we're in the learning phases of our organization. So being in your presence and hearing your questions really helps us as we get ready to launch a bunch of other schools and have a bunch of these discussions throughout the state of Washington, throughout the country. So I really appreciate your time, and hope everybody stays healthy, and hope to be working with you soon.
Thank you. And I'd like to close now. The work session is adjourned for an executive session. We will return at 7 p.m. for our regular meeting.
I'm also a little caffeinated, I think, because I knew it was gonna be a lot tonight. Or it feels like it's gonna be. These little cookbooks are so fun.
I know, aren't they cute?
They're adorable. My goodness, 37. Oh.
Let me get my life together. I'm reading a proclamation. I'm doing the pledge. Okay.
It is 7:01, and I'm calling the meeting to order. And I just have an announcement that Director Clark, Director Farah, Chief Accountability Officer Dr. Jewel Harmon, Executive Director of Operations and Facilities, Mr. Dave Buzzard, will be attending the meeting via Zoom. And I would now like to ask Vice President Bento to say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome the public's participation in the board meeting, and thank you all for coming tonight, and those that are viewing live stream. The Kent School District staff has done its best to advise you of the governor's order requiring those in attendance to wear masks. And now I'd like to go over some process for audience participation. The purpose of the board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Those wishing to comment must complete a comment card and turn it into Naomi Zentella either before the meeting begins or no later than the beginning of the interim superintendent's report. No cards will be accepted once this report has begun. Visitors who have completed a comment card indicating a desire to speak to an agenda item will be called at the portion of the agenda. There's a brief delay in the live stream audio. We will allow for extra time for you to make your way to the boardroom if you are in an after overflow room. When it is your turn to address the board, your mask needs to remain on while making your comment. Please state your name at the start of the testimony. Public comments will be heard after the opening during preliminary communication from the audience, at specific agenda items, and during final communication from the audience. Students will be the first to speak on any topic. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. You will hear a timer when 3 minutes are up. Please do not use specific names of staff or students or personnel identifiable information. Abusive public comments personally directed towards staff or board members will not be tolerated. The president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it's too lengthy, obscene, or irrelevant. Per board procedure, written material to provide board members with background information should be submitted to the superintendent's office at least 1 week in advance of the meeting. Now I'd like to ask Director Bettinger to read the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
I'd now like to call on Interim Superintendent Vela if there are any changes to the agenda.
President Hamada, there is one change to the agenda. We are adding an addendum to item 5.08, Superintendent Search Firm contract between McPherson and Jacobson, LLC, and Kent School District.
All right, I'd like to ask a board member to make a motion, please.
I move that we approve the addition of the addendum to item 5.08.
I second.
Is there any discussion? There has been a motion to include the change to the agenda to add addendum to item 5.08, and it has been seconded. All board directors in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Can somebody tell me if Mr. Clark is, where is Mr. Clark?
We're working to get him
Okay.
right now.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? I believe the motion carries. All right, we're on to 2.0, recognition. I'd like to call on Interim Superintendent Vela to read the proclamation.
Thank you, President Hamada. Whereas the mission of Washington's public school system is to assure that all students achieve at high levels and possess the knowledge and skills to be responsible members of a democratic society who enjoy productive and satisfying lives, and whereas Washington's 295 locally elected school boards and 9 elected educational service district boards are the core of the public education governance system in our state. And whereas the districts and regions they lead serve more than 1 million students, have a combined annual budget of over $15 billion, and employ approximately 120,000 people. And whereas school directors play a crucial role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for all involved. And whereas school directors are directly accountable to the residents in their districts and regions, serving as a vital link between members of the community and their schools. And whereas school directors in educational service districts provide a passionate voice of advocacy for public schools and the welfare of school children. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize school directors as outstanding volunteers and champions for public education. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim January 2022 as School Board Recognition Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed this 15th day of December 2021, Governor Jay Inslee. I'd like to take a moment to present our Board of Directors with a certificate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Board Directors Farah and Clark, I will get you in person when we see each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're on to 2.02, Proclamation, National Mentoring Month. I'd like to call on Vice President Beno to read the proclamation.
Thank you. A National Mentoring Month. Whereas the Kent School District recognizes that its successes depend on ensuring all students succeed in school and reach their full potential in life, and realizes that students need a solid foundation of support that will help them become well-educated, confident, and productive citizens. And whereas mentoring is a proven effective strategy that helps students by matching them with a caring, responsible adult who can provide guidance and direction and build their confidence. And whereas research shows that mentoring has beneficial and long-term effects for students by increasing their chances of high school graduation and college attendance and decreasing the likelihood of substance abuse and other risky behaviors. And whereas mentoring strengthens our community's economic and social well-being by helping students fulfill their potential while helping maintain healthy families and promoting more vibrant communities. And whereas National Mentoring Month is an opportunity to raise public awareness of the importance of mentoring, recognize the dedicated individuals who serve mentors, and encourages more citizens to help build a brighter future for Kent's youth through mentoring. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Kent School District Board of Directors proclaims January 2022 as National Mentoring Month and urges all citizens to recognize the importance of mentoring and to look for opportunities to serve as mentors in their communities. Signed this 12th day of January 2022 by the Kent Board of Directors and Mr. Vela, Interim Secretary to the Board.
Thank you very much, Vice President Bento. Just a point of privilege that I've done a lot of mentoring and tutoring in districts across the state of Washington, and 6 years in the Kent community, in community of schools. And what it gives back to the person doing the mentoring is a lot too, because I've had so many connections with all of the kids over the years, and I'm still hearing from those kids as adults, and it's just makes you feel like a better person when you're doing the mentoring. So I encourage everybody, when we get back to normal, you can be in these schools again, to try it, mentoring, if you've never done it. It's a great thing. We're on to 3.0, and that's preliminary communication from the audience. And I guess we don't have any students in the room, and Ms. Zentella.
Thank you, President Hamada, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Vela. All the comments for tonight will be ones that were received online, a total of 15, none of which were students. The first comment was submitted by Rachel Thamer Ramirez. With the amount of students missing school, why is there not an option to watch classes online? My kids are worried that they will fall behind if they have to quarantine because of illness or even exposure. The next comment was submitted by Lynette Holm. There needs to be online live options for kids that are quarantining at home. It's unacceptable at this point for kids to miss school and not have the option of live online instruction, especially in light of our current COVID crisis and delayed testing. The next comment was submitted by Christy Loganville. An OSPI document dated September of 2021 states that the district must ensure that students continue to have access to instruction and learning and not be excluded from instruction opportunity if students must quarantine or be absent due to COVID. At this time, I have seen no such offer or access to instructional services in the Kent School District or specifically at the KSD school my children attend. I urge the board and our district leaders to ensure that all is being done to adhere to such guidelines and ensure all is being done to keep our kids learning and moving forward should they need to be at home. The next comment was submitted by Nancy Tom. Hello, Kent School Board and Interim Superintendent Vela. I'm reaching out today regarding KSD's lack of simultaneous online classes for kids who are out due to illness. The Kent School District has counted on our community to fund the technology levies to provide our district with one-to-one devices. Yet, we are one of the few districts that does not offer any online opportunities for our students. This was the same issue that happened when schools were canceled 2 years ago. KSD was one of the slowest schools to get things up and running, even though we are one of the very few districts who even had one-to-one laptops at the time. Why are we not utilizing equipment our district has been provided by our tax-paying community? We know families who live in various communities across the United States, and it's quite common that kids can log on and listen to their classes at home while sick or quarantined due to COVID or waiting on test results. None of our students have had a normal educational experience during the past 2 years. Forcing kids to sit at home for a week or 2 weeks every time there's close contact or symptoms is not properly utilizing the technology we have, nor is it serving our students or our community. Many students are already so far behind. Not allowing them to access to their classes online is further holding them back. This is especially important at the high school level. High school kids cannot
easily miss 5 or 10 days of school in a row. We all know this, but yet KSD has turned a blind eye to this continually happening. KSD can and should be doing better for our kids. As taxpayers in this community, we expect better than just being told to get assignments off of Canvas online. This is simply unacceptable and should not be okay to the school board or to the administration running our district. Do better, KSD. Our kids deserve better. Thank you for your time. The next comment was submitted by Casey Grow. My kindergartner is currently out of school due to COVID. He got it prior to the return from winter break. He has now missed a full week plus 2 days, and he currently isn't healthy enough to return to school tomorrow. Why don't we have options for students to access school online while they are homesick or waiting on results? We are a school filled with technology, yet our district can't provide access to educate all students. How is this actually providing a free, appropriate education to all students? If my child was any grade above kindergarten, he would be greatly behind. My house went to get COVID tested 6 days ago and still have no results. No, this was not through KSD. However, the delay in testing is happening everywhere now. While these children wait 6 days after the 5-day wait to even get tested for COVID, they've now missed a total of 11 days. That is 66 classes in a middle and high school student would have to make up while ensuring they complete current assignments for 6 classes a day. There has to be a better way. There has to be a better plan. Our children need to be educated better. They need better access to their classes while at home in isolation. Can you imagine the stress of these kids sitting at home, trapped away from their school and friends, knowing that every minute that ticks by, they're getting further behind? We are setting them up for failure. The next comment was submitted by Aaron Martin. Please do not return KSD to online learning for any amount of time. While I understand the current Omicron surge is concerning, I want to share with you how damaging online learning was for my students. I teach at an elementary school with an extremely diverse student population. It is not uncommon in our building for classrooms to have more than 5 different languages represented in one small cohort of students. The majority of the families in our community do not have surplus amounts of leave from employment that allow them to stay home and support their students during remote learning. Nor do they have disposable incomes that would allow them to hire help to support their children in remote learning. These factors resulted in extremely poor attendance and engagement during remote learning. The challenges that schools are facing, post-remote learning are rampant in our school. It is overwhelmingly evident that the demographic of students from the communities like the one I teach in were disproportionately affected in a negative way by not being able to access their education during remote learning. Challenges navigating technology and lack of access to reliable internet are just 2 major hurdles my students face during remote learning. I'm struggling to reconcile current concerns about absences with the concerns that were shared last year on how few were truly engaging in remote learning. We found out quickly that even if a student did manage to log in, just having their computer on did not equate in any way to a meaningful education. I have seen that a few community members and teachers are asking to return to remote learning for a short period of time or until COVID levels drop. I am deeply concerned that if we return to online learning for any period of time, we will be there for the rest of the school year. I am begging you to please remember how extremely difficult it was to get our students back into the buildings, even after vaccinations became available. Our students deserve better than another lengthy fight between KEA and KSD. I understand that Omicron is worrisome, but all data and public health information is indicating that this surge will be short-lived and is nowhere near as severe as previous strains of COVID. In fact, the CDC has shortened quarantine guidelines. Moving to remote learning will further marginalize my students and place the mental health of all students at risk. I am pleading with you to please not set my students further back than they already are. Continue enforcing masking and distancing guidelines, but keep everyone in classrooms where students like mine at least have a fighting chance. The next comment was submitted by Jennifer Yeager. I am a teacher in the Kent School District who takes safety first. Last week, on January 4th, I was able to secure a COVID test at a KSD location for me and my children, who are students in the KSD, after KSD robocalled all staff and students recommending that they take a COVID test over the break. It is January 11th, and I have no results. I am now way past the quarantine window. My children and I have hopefully not passed COVID on to others, but we do not know. I know many staff and families waiting for test results from last week. I urge you to look into other testing options for staff and families. If we want to stop the spread, we need testing in every building with adequate turnaround time. Other districts have been able to do this. Why not KSD? I find this unacceptable. Please do better for your staff and families. The next comment was submitted by Suzanne Unger. The COVID testing for students is not acceptable. As a nurse, I would not take my students to the school testing site, knowing that the sites are crowded and that the people are not receiving their COVID test results in a timely manner. Please find another testing option that includes on-site rapid tests. The next comment was submitted by Jocelyn Villegas. You need to shut down the KSD COVID testing sites if they are not giving you the results fast enough. I know many, many families, including mine right now, who have been waiting over a week for results. Over a week. That is insane. If these tests come back to be negative, that means our children would have lost over a week or more of education just because we were waiting for results. And adults are missing time off work, going crazy, waiting for results. Opening a new day for tests will not fix the problem. You are setting us up for failure with those testing sites. Where are our test results? One family I know has been waiting 2 weeks. Please fix this problem ASAP. The next comment was submitted by Peter D. Haroldson. Ridgewood Elementary School still remains closed to parents and volunteers. The board and district leadership still lack enforcement of consistent uniform rules and policies for building access and oversight of principals who do not follow district policies. After my comments at the last 2 meetings, nobody attempted to communicate with me, and Ridgewood policies did not change to conform with district-wide policies. I got a form letter from legal, likely because I mentioned a lawsuit against the district. This demonstrates that parents and volunteers are treated like nothing more than a liability and certainly not like an inclusive part of the school community, despite the board's proclamations of inclusivity, which ring hollow. The Ridgewood principal's actions also jeopardize student safety. The Ridgewood principal does not allow parents on campus to pick up children, instead pushing students out the side gate into Petrovsky Park for pickup, closing the gate behind them. Students are not allowed to return to campus, even if there is no parent to pick them up. My wife waited a significant time with 2 students who were alone and afraid because they couldn't return to campus and would have been alone in the park but for a concerned parent. Instead of staying in the office like in years past, these children are pushed off campus where they could have been abducted or harmed. Why will the board and superintendent not enforce policies among building principals? Will it take harm to a student to force change? The next comment was submitted by Erica Billiard. Dear KSD Board, I am a parent to 2 wonderful KSD students, and I'm asking you to follow through on your commitments to keep students, staff, and families safe. You directed the district to reinstate the COVID dashboard. A new dashboard was put up, and it is less informative, wildly inaccurate, and essentially worthless because it doesn't contain accurate information. The dashboard is reporting that there are 2 COVID cases when there are over 100 staff and students missing from a small school. This is unacceptable when other districts of all sizes are able to manage accurate dashboards. Please direct the district to report accurate and detailed public-facing numbers so family and staff can make safe decisions during this difficult time. A COVID testing option was made available to supposedly give everyone greater access to testing and safety. However, Precision Lab Management, Supreme Labs, the Texas testing company you contracted with, is failing to adequately staff KSD testing sites and give results in a timely manner. Samples don't even show up as pending. leading many to wonder if they ever arrived in Texas. Some folks have been waiting over a week, others 2 weeks for results. Additionally, many have posted that if they didn't have COVID before they arrived at a district site, they did when they left because many have been crowded with no organization or safety measures. Additionally, KSD has failed to adequately communicate the availability of these sites to families and staff, secure rapid tests from the state, and implement an aggregate testing program like many other districts have done to improve safety. Please investigate this relationship with PLM Supreme Labs and direct the district to do better to make timely testing accessible to students, staff, and families. COVID safety isn't being allowed at many KSD schools. COVID safety isn't being followed at many KSD schools. Staff and students don't have adequate, properly fitting masks available. District masking rules often aren't enforced, and students, like my preschooler, are being packed into classrooms so tightly they have to stay at their desks just to stay 18 inches apart from others. Please direct the district to fix these issues to improve safety. This community has supported KSD, and we need your support in keeping our families safe. Thank you for your help. The next comment was submitted by Denise Renteria. With the tremendous surge in the COVID-19 Omicron virus, communities, families, parents, students, and all campus education staff still find ourselves in overwhelm, stress, and beyond endurance. It is a breath of fresh air to hear the district's transparent message delivered just today, January 11th, 2022, out to schools and communities regarding the devastation and impact of the virus upon students, families, and employees, and the efforts the district will now put forth in support of its schools and students. This transparency and communication, solidarity, and resolve to support, while welcome, could have had more of an impact back in August 2021 as school was beginning. All staff from levels at campuses have been running as fast and as hard as we can upon shifting sands for almost 5 months, and the toll is great. The hope is that the district words turn into action, planning proactively beyond the today, and collaborative creation of ongoing positive stewardship of transformative leadership and education. We need it. The next comment was submitted by Nick Billiard. Dear KSD Board of Directors, during this time of immense community transmission that's led to record absenteeism, overflowing school COVID isolation rooms, and a health system that's stressed to the point of breaking, it's incumbent upon you to do the right thing and implement online learning for a brief period. Nobody wants it, but our community needs it. Students who are rightfully staying home while symptomatic or awaiting pending tests should have the opportunity to continue to learn, and that's simply not happening currently. We have the technology and experience to be nimble in this extremely difficult situation. Let's come together and use it to the advantage of our students, families, and staff. KSD will start healing its relationship with the community and gain levy support when it starts acting in the best interests of the community. A brief pause so testing can catch up and students can learn at home is what's best here. Thank you, Nick Billiard. The next comment was submitted by Megan Carter. Hello, members of the board and Interim Superintendent Vela. I had hoped that COVID would be on the agenda tonight, but since it is not, this is a general comment. The lack of communication regarding COVID from the district has been disconcerting. While I read the newsletter last Friday, I was shocked to see there was no mention of COVID at all. We did receive the email tonight with some information, but there are still so many questions that parents have and are not being answered. Here are a few. Number one, how will the district deal with the new isolation guidelines for COVID positive students during lunch? The CDC and Department of Health guidelines state that strict masking is required on days 6 through 10, and places where you cannot mask should be avoided, such as restaurants. How will other children be protected from the unmasked COVID positive students while eating? There needs to be a concrete plan in place for this. Number two, has contact tracing been ramped up to try to keep up with the exponential growth in cases? Health room and office staff cannot shoulder this enormous task. Number 3, what is being done to provide access to timely testing for staff and students? Why has KSD not signed up to test through Department of Health? With our tests being shipped off to Texas, there is even more delay added on. Number 4, what is being done to ensure that school campuses are safe for all students during this time? Families with high-risk individuals are not safe within our schools right now. Number 5, the dashboard is wildly inaccurate and does not reflect what is actually going on in our schools. Please consider following a similar protocol to Renton, where families at that school are notified nightly of how many additional cases have been identified. Number 6, please provide more protective masks to all staff and students. This is a key piece of the puzzle that has not been addressed. The Department of Health said that it is critical to ramp up testing, mitigation measures, and contact tracing. KSD has not done any of these things. I truly believe that in-person learning can be safe for almost all kids, but not with the way things are being handled here. KSD has been plagued by poor communication for a long time. Now is a good time to try to right the ship and provide transparent and timely communication to families so that we can make informed decisions about our children. School staff are doing an incredible job to handle this crisis, but are not receiving the support and guidance they need. Let's change that. The next and final comment for the evening was submitted by Rihanna Liang. Hello, Kent School Board. There are many concerns around the health and safety of our students, families, and staff. With the current Omicron variant surge, our school is not doing well. With delays in receiving district COVID testing results, it affects proper contact tracing. Students and families worried about the safety of all. Classroom learning and classroom routines are disrupted. At Sunrise Elementary School on Monday, there were 135 students absent. Today, Tuesday, there are more than 135 students absent. There have been 14 staff members absent from Sunrise, and with a shortage of substitutes, this prevents students from keeping the regular school routine. One second grade classroom has only 2 students show up today. The teacher is absent, and 2 positive COVID cases have been reported in the classroom. According to CDC guidelines, this classroom should be shut down and pivot to remote learning, but yet it remained open today. Today, 4 or more classrooms are facing over 30% of absences. This is disruptive to the learning environment, and students are not receiving regular, focused instruction from their regular classroom teacher. The COVID numbers are on the rise. The best response from the Department of Health suggests to take layers of protection. I am asking the KSD board to make some decisions regarding a change to how school operates. Offering hybrid, remote learning, or selected small groups in-person learning are ways that can protect the health and safety of the students, families, and staff. In addition, it will help curb staffing shortages. Thank you for your understanding that the students' and families' safety come first. That concludes the comments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zantella. You do an excellent job of all that reading. I don't think I could do it, especially with this mask on. I start to hyperventilate. So we're on to 4.0, Interim Superintendent Report.
Thank you, President Hamada. This evening, I will begin by saying Happy New Year. It is hard to believe we are already in mid-January, and what a start to the new year it has been. In 2 months, on March 16th, 2022, it will be 2 years since Governor Jay Inslee ordered the closure of all schools in King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On that day in 2020, none of us could have possibly imagined just how impactful this pandemic would be for all of us. Yet today, we stand as a stronger, more resilient, transformed learning community. In our district's first 12 days of January, we've experienced record staff and student absences. As Omicron cases continue to surge in our community, in addition, last week we closed school for our first snow days, and the 5th update in COVID protocol guidance from Public Health this school year was released. When I talk about record staff and student absences, I want to be clear about what our data shows. January 3rd, 6th, and 7th, our district-wide student absences averaged 24%, with just over 6,000 students absent across the district each day. This week, student absences have improved just slightly to 21%, just over 5,000 students absent district-wide each day. In these first days of instruction this calendar year, we have also had an average of 18% of our teachers, paras, and office staff absent and needing substitutes. This is just over 400 teachers, paras, and office staff out each day. This number does not account for our bus drivers, nutrition services staff, nurses, principals, custodians, and maintenance staff, central office staff, and the many outstanding individuals it takes to operate our schools each and every day safely. This pandemic does not discriminate. In particular, the Omicron variant is striking individuals in our schools, our central office, in every part of our organization, every age, race, creed, and zip code. As I have shared before during the pandemic, our staff at every level has experienced an unprecedented amount of stress, impacting their mental health like the rest of the country. We continue to see many staff shortages across teams and positions due to COVID-related absences. The illnesses and levels of stress in our staff continue to be incredibly concerning. My executive cabinet team and I monitor the absences reported daily. We continue to work with public health and collaborate with regional colleagues to ensure we look at all possible solutions. At the same time, we know that our staff and families continue to have diverse and sometimes conflicting opinions about the pandemic, in-person learning, and the path forward. Yesterday, in a lengthy update to staff and families, I shared some of the solutions we are working on and have implemented, including adding COVID testing sites and times, deploying central office staff to schools as they are available, and continuing to follow COVID safety protocols. I cannot stress enough, however, that none of this would be possible without the dedication and hard work of our KSD staff. We, Team KSD, will continue to do all we can to keep our schools open for safe and healthy in-person learning for our students. All of our staff continue to do a fantastic job working together to support our students and families each day, from custodians and maintenance and building leaders to central office leadership. So many work during winter break, and many leaders have been working 7 days a week. I want to publicly thank each and every member of Team KST for your service, dedication, and commitment to our mission, vision, and core values. As a former teacher and principal and longtime KST community member, I know this has been a challenging year. I look forward to the day we can reflect on all the lessons we are learning during the pandemic, lessons I'm sure will stay with us for years to come and make us better educators moving forward. As the pandemic continues, we will continue to follow public health guidance, track positive cases, close classrooms working with public health, and minimize the spread of COVID in our schools by following strict COVID safety protocols while supporting student learning and well-being. I know that the national supply chain issues are impacting families and staff in many ways. The backups at COVID testing labs are delaying results, and the varied responses to the pandemic nationally can be both confusing and frustrating. However, I want to assure our students, families, staff, and community that our priority in KSD is keeping schools open as long as we can provide staff to operate in-person learning safely. We know remote learning was inequitable for students. Therefore, we will continue to navigate this pandemic with safety as a priority while focusing on educating all students. I also want to take a moment to thank our elected community members that dedicate their time to serve on the school board in honor of School Board Appreciation Month. As trustees for the community schools, the Kent School Board of Directors is responsible and accountable for vision, structure, advocacy, and accountability. The board meetings and board work sessions like tonight are held each month for our elected officials to discuss and vote on policies and recommend procedures that guide our students' education and our district's financial longevity. The tasks that come with being a school board member are numerous and varied. Still, you, our elected officials, sacrifice time away from your lives and families to help make a positive difference in our community. Your commitment to service and public education affects the future lives of our children and our community, and for that, we say thank you. January is School Board Recognition Month. I invite you here or on Zoom to please join me in celebrating and honoring our board members. Finally, I want to address the recent reports of an investigation and call for a resignation of a Kent Police Department Assistant Police Chief. With racial equity as a central component of safety and security planning, it is imperative that all school safety and security staff, including our school resource officers, who are members of local law enforcement agencies, not contribute to an unsafe environment for KSD students in Kent School District. We believe every KSD student, family, and staff member deserves a respectful, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment where their diversity is recognized, valued, and contributes to their success. We became aware of the investigation into Assistant Chief Camerzel in December when the public did. While this officer in particular, does not work with our students or district, we do have a relationship with the City of Kent and the Kent Police Department as a whole. While the actions of one person do not represent an entire organization, as a public school district, we must be thoughtful about the partnerships we enter into. We always seek partners that align with our mission, vision, and core values. Unfortunately, our staff and board did not know about this incident or investigation when entering into the school resource officer contract with the Kent Police Department for the 2021-22 school year. How we move forward will depend significantly on our partners' response and the input we receive from our students, families, and community at our upcoming student and community listening sessions embedded in the SRO legislation and our process this school year. I have appreciated the openness and responsiveness of Mayor Ralph and Chief Padilla to hear our concerns about the situation. I commit to being transparent with staff, students, and families as this situation evolves. I am humbly asking for your grace and trust as we navigate the complexity of this situation, given the level of influence we have and don't have on municipal matters. Unfortunately, incidents like these are not isolated or one-off. Our work is ongoing, both in our district and in our community, and it is how we respond to these situations that we must also be held accountable for. Racial inequities have been created and perpetuated over time and can be eliminated. Similarly, personal prejudice is learned and can be unlearned. And we, Kent School District, stand ready to do the work in partnership with those who also stand ready to do the work and be accountable for their actions. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Interim Superintendent Vela. I think I skipped over making sure all the comments were received. I mean, I think we saw it was empty earlier, but I want for clarification, there are no comment cards and no numbers for any going forward, correct? Thank you. I just want clarification on that. Okay, we're on to 5.01 and resolution number 1619, cancellation of warrants. I would like a motion.
I move that we approve resolution number 1619, cancellation of warrants.
I second.
It has been, well, discussion. No, wait a minute. It has been moved and seconded for resolution number 1619, cancellation of warrants. Discussion. Director Farah, anything? You're open. Director Clark, anything, comments? Anyone?
No.
No comments? Okay. I'll call for the vote. All of those in favor of Resolution 5.01, Resolution number 1619, cancellation of warrants, signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. We're on to 5.02, resolution number 1620, declaring the certain areas of real property surplus and directing the execution of a lease agreement with Bezos Academy. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve 5.02, resolution number 1620, declaring the certain areas of real property surplus and directing the execution of a lease agreement with Bezos Academy.
For point of discussion, I'll second. It has been moved and seconded that resolution number 1620, declaring the certain areas of real property surplus and directing the execution of a lease agreement with Bezos Academy. Discussion.
I mean, I guess I have a couple of questions,
Go ahead.
if there's someone to answer. I guess based on the work session today, I didn't think we were going to vote on this immediately. By voting in favor of this, we are entering an agreement with the Bezos Academy to start that process of the academy.
Thank you, Director Bennell. I would like to call on Mr. Paul Brockvogel to answer your specific question about that.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Paul Brockvogel, the attorney for the district on this matter. Yeah, the resolution requires the execution of the contract upon a 45-day period that follows a notice that's published in a local newspaper of record. And so the reason we did this is to provide some assurance to the counterparty that we would execute the lease, there would be no delay. But there's a statutory requirement that 45 days runs. And so that's sort of the condition precedent that's required, and that's the reason it's sort of stunted. Otherwise, we'd come to you with a lease and say, can we have authorization to execute this? So we've done it this way also to move things along. They have assurance after this resolution is passed, in your wisdom, if it is, to go ahead with their business plan, which has a critical path to it in construction and staffing. So this is the assurance they're receiving by this resolution.
I guess I'm just unclear if I'm even in favor of this. I feel like I just need to kind of think about whether this is something, like just some of the things I heard today, like, I don't know. I'm pro-union, I'm a pro-union person, and to hear, and I know Amazon and other, and I know they're not associated with Amazon, but, and companies, I feel like are not usually union friendly, or that, which usually means that they're not worker friendly. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I worked at Walmart when I was in college. I just feel like they're always like, hey, we give good benefits. And I just felt like they treated us like garbage. So like, I always want to make sure like companies like that are responsible for hiring people in our community treat our workers, like treat them well. And I just, without having accreditation or whatnot, like, maybe this is my bias a little bit, is just because Bezos has millions and billions of dollars doesn't mean he knows anything about education and could start a school just because he has an idea. Like I would like to see a little bit more related to accreditations. Like NIAC is pretty easy. National Association for the Education of Young Children is the acronym. So just things like that. Like I'm just unsure. So I feel like I need to think a little bit more, and I ask a little more questions. Only hearing the work session at 5:30, well, I came late, a little after 5:30 till when we ask questions. I just don't feel like it's enough time to say, yes, let's move this forward, sign the lease, and move it forward. I don't know if I feel okay about that. That's just me, though.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, our policy 1420 requires that, relevant supplementary information be provided to each board director at least 3 days in advance. And there, we got the lease agreement. I don't know if there's any other agreements. And I've mentioned something similar before, that a work session and then a vote immediately after it just personally doesn't give me enough time to ponder. And honestly, literally, I went back because I remembered it from weekly updates. Literally 24 sentences about it in weekly updates starting in May of 2021 is, and it doesn't seem like the public has even had a chance to hear anything about this. And then I also have concerns about education and accreditation, but then on a bigger scale, Mr. Buzzard has said before that property is hard to find in the Kent School District, and we are experiencing a downturn in enrollment in kindergarten and things like that. As I understood it, that building has been used in the past for kindergarten as well, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I looked in our capital facilities plan to see if I could find anything about what we were intending to do with that building. And I looked in the boundary study again, and I don't see that it's in our capital facilities plan to lease that property. And with enrollment in such flux, I'm worried about losing the space, and I'm worried about the timing of it, and I'm worried about, at the end of the day, who is ultimately going to be responsible for those students? So if anyone has any information on what the plan was, where I could find the plan for that building space, that would be my first piece of information. And I know I did send this in an email too, is where the plan was for this building in the first place. And I did send questions about, who's responsible for these students should something change. And and then my last question is, what's the cost-benefit analysis? Can the board see the cost-benefit analysis on this as well?
So to clarify, I heard two questions. One, you'd like to see the plan for the building.
Yeah.
And then the other one, a cost-benefit analysis plan.
Yeah.
Could you clarify that?
So what impact would this have on, would this partnership increase or decrease our revenues, and in what way? And would it increase or decrease our expenditures, and in what way? And like I said, I sent these questions on, I emailed these questions in. So cost-benefit analysis and just what the original plan for that building was. That's my second. I sent about 7 questions. But after having the presentation and previous questions, I feel like most of them have been answered. And so it's like capital facilities planning, cost-benefit analysis, and who is responsible for these students ultimately.
Great, thank you. No, I just wanted to clarify so that my team can get answers back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they're not going to be tonight, though?
The cost-benefit analysis will take time. That's one.
Okay.
Secondly, the facilities plan, I'd like to have my team time for that. So I'll get that back to you.
Was there anything else, Director Bettinger?
No.
Director Clark?
The sad thing is, very clearly, this particular service would be of great benefit to those select families that obviously gain access to it. And they have to start somewhere. So I understand a small sample to begin to demonstrate the success of the program. But I kind of agree with Michelle. Bringing this forward immediately after the workshop isn't the way we should be handling these things. And I'm uncomfortable with it without having a chance to have further conversations. Thank you.
Director Farah?
I don't have any questions because I raised 4 kids in city of Kent, and I know how difficult it is to have preschool for especially kids of color, and that's why my wife decided to open a preschool for kids that, when they start school, are behind. So for me, I do understand the intricacies that are involved in having a preschool. There's a state, there's a city, there's so many regulations that they have to follow. And that's why I don't have questions. And I think this is beneficial to the community.
Thank you. Again, I think it would have been, if we had a little better timeline on this, for a little more to absorb such a vote. But I did do quite a bit of research online, and I did speak to some people in the state. Some of you will remember Representative Marcy Maxwell, who also was on the House of Representatives from 2009 to 2013 from the 41st District. She was a floor leader for education and opportunity. In 2013, she was a senior education policy advisor to Governor Jay Inslee, and I asked her some very pointed questions like this, and if she had any knowledge in this area, and she thought this would probably be a pretty good program for Kent. I text King County Councilman Dave Updegrove and quote, Dave, if somebody else is paying for it and you're benefiting for it, go for it. I found that kind of interesting. And I did speak with the mayor of Des Moines, Matt Mahoney. He just was elected mayor last night. And he said in all his experience so far with the program, which has been limited because they've had restrictions between COVID and all that, and he said that they hadn't heard any complaints or anything, and they were excited, to get more involved when they could go in and visit the one they had there. And he thought these partnerships were great that they were entering into, even though it wasn't really with the city. It's with Wesley Homes, and I've had 2 teacher friends who live in Wesley Homes, and they actually excited to get in there and work with those kids. I wish we would have had a little more time to absorb this, but I think when an opportunity like this comes along, it's important to grasp a hold of it because we may lose it. And one of the things about preschool is it's really not overall something that the government gets involved with very much unless there's special needs. So the funding for that is limited, and a lot of places have a hard time starting them up. And with what you have in front of you, it sounds like you guys have thought enough through for a preschool program that this could probably work pretty good for our kids. And because I've worked so many years with kids who've been economically disadvantaged, this is so important. I've seen the results from kids who've had the experience of more preschools that are organized and run well, and it helps the parents too. I think only reservation I have this is about the lease itself, which is kind of crazy. As I mentioned to Paul, I've been in the landlord business for about 3 years in 3 different states in residential, being a landlord, and it's not fun. Particularly, you have to watch yourself very carefully, and you want to be a good landlord to your tenants. But this lease doesn't really have many pluses for us to back out of it if it's not working. That's the only thing it doesn't say one thing in there that we can have any restraint on that, and we own the building and stuff, so that would be my only concern. So, and I appreciate very much your presentation tonight. Thank you. And if there's no further...
If I may add one more thing.
Sure.
Would it be different if the name was not Bezos?
What did you say, Wally?
I said, it will make any difference if the name was not Bezos? Okay.
I'm not going to take that one on. Thank you, Wally. I think that pretty much concludes our discussion. Are we ready for a vote or any other? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. It has been moved and seconded, Resolution 1620, declaring that certain areas of real property surplus and directing the execution of a lease agreement with Bezos Academy. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Do I see 3 votes up there? Okay. All of those in favor of saying no, raise your right hand and say nay.
All those opposed? Nay,
But-
sorry.
Excuse me, all those opposed. And abstentions, we have none. So as I see it, the motion carries. We're on to 5.03, Inclusive Education Program Technology Refresh. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we adopt 5.03, 2021-2022 Inclusive Education Program Technology Refresh.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that 2021 Inclusive Education Program Refresh. Discussion. Discussion. Him, you're unmuted. You're unmuted. Do you have something, Mr. Clark? Director Clark?
Yes, I mean, it was very obvious that the technology involved in supporting inclusive education coming available is clearly needed, and I approve.
Director Farrer, do you have any discussion? Seeing none here, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of 2021-22 Inclusive Education Program Technology Refresh signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed or not in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. We're on to 5.04, Cedar Heights Middle School field renovation. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 5.04 Cedar Heights Middle School field renovation, change order number 1.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that Cedar Heights Middle School field renovation change order number 1. Discussion. Any discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of Cedar Heights Middle School field renovation change order number 1 signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. All abstentions? The motion carries. We're on to 5.05. Kentwood High School PAC remodel, change order number 1. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 5.05 Kentwood High School PAC remodel, change order number 1.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that Kentwood High School PAC remodel, change order number 1. Discussion.
I've had a chance to walk the site, and it's looking good.
No further discussion? I'll call for the motion. Kentwood High School PAC remodel, change order number 1. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay. Abstentions? The motion carries. We're on to 5.06, New Academy Building Construction Changes, change order number 5. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 5.06 New Academy Building Construction changes, change order number 5.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded for a New Academy Building Construction changes, change order number 5. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of New Academy Building Construction changes, change order number 5, signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by raising your hand and saying nay. Abstentions? The motion carries. 5.07, 2021 Unit 19, Renton South King Retired School Employees Association, Kent Meridian High School, mini grants. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 5.07, 2021-22, Unit 19, Renton South King Retired South Employees Association, Kent Meridian High School mini grant awards.
I second.
Discussion.
I just want to say to those retirees who really worked very hard to provide that needed funds for the benefit of our students. I can't thank them enough.
I would also like to say thank you. It's very nice.
Just for the board's knowledge, I did send a personal thank you to the organization for their generous contribution.
And again, I'll piggyback on what everybody else said. That's wonderful that they're still in there, still caring about our kids. So,
Yes.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote on all those in favor of 2021-2022 Unit 19 Renton South King Retired Schools Employees Association Kent Meridian High School mini grants award signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by raising your hand and saying nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. We're on to 5.08, Superintendent Search Firm Contract between McPherson's and Jacobson LLC and Kent School District. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we adopt 5.08 Superintendent Search Firm Contract between McPherson and Jacobson LLC and Kent School.
I second, and that also includes the addendum, correct?
Discussion?
I just wanted to voice my apprehension about this. The timeline is what is driving this, and I gotta put the community in first, so I will vote yes on this one.
And I believe that, this is something, the best time to have done this would have been in August. We had the opportunity to start this RFP process. And the second best time, in my opinion, is now. We put out an RFP and we interviewed the two firms that submitted. And I understand the timing is not great, but we made a commitment, in my opinion, the commitment to engage the public with the RFP proposal, because that was very important. And so I believe in this.
I'm going to echo that. I really think it's important that we move forward. The longer we delay, the longer it's going to take to hire a superintendent, and I don't want to rush this through the summer. I want to make sure that we get that contract followed, that we get a person identified by the end of March or mid-April, whatever that looks like, and just making sure that that superintendent can start the very first day of the contracted year on July. That way we can get them acclimated to the school district before the school year starts at the end of August. So for me, I think it makes sense that we get on this and get on this now. And that way, again, we made a promise to the community that they would be involved in this process, and we want to keep that promise and keep transparent communication open so that we can fulfill our promise to the community. So I think we need to do this.
And if I can, Madam Chair?
Yes, Director Clark.
I'm with Awali. I struggled wishing to have been a further part of that conversation that we were unable to do. But I just don't think it has to be solved tonight. So I will be opposed.
I just want to add to also, I apologize to jump in, Madam President. It's just that this could have been done in August, and it has not been done. And now we just got elected, and we have to make a decision. Less than a month after we've been sworn in, and it's for me it's not enough. But again, I have to look at the benefit of the community, and I have to agree that I'll vote yes for this. But I wish that we've done a better job, and more specifically from the previous board, should have taken this up and make sure that the process was further along and it would have been solved.
Believe me, I agree with you. I've agreed with you since, I've been talking about it since August. So I totally agree. We should have done this then. And like I said, the best time now, in my opinion, is now.
You had a question, and the addendum, Director Bettinger, is included in the vote, just for clarification on
Yes.
that, okay? Well, again, I want, and please pay attention to this, who's ever taking the minutes, that I want it stipulated in the minutes that this motion is with the board's, well, I'll put it into my thoughts, and I want it recorded. I guess that's what I can do is, I want to make sure that the search firm is held to their contract, that we, the board, are going to hold the search firm very closely and keep on tabs with them, that they have, in a conversation that I had today with the person that's going to direct this search, personally with others working with him, that he feels he has plenty of time, their organization is experienced in doing this, and they feel they have plenty of time to have community input. I think we have a complete unanimous board that feels they want our community to be heard on this issue. And talking with him, he feels that there is plenty of time, and they are the experts in the field, that they can accomplish that we can get the voice out, the information heard, we can post it, and still probably around mid-April come up with a candidate. And if we don't come up with a candidate, if they bring candidates to us, there is nothing, just for an educational point of view, that says we have to go ahead and select one of those candidates. We can go through the process of hiring, continuing our contract with the interim, or doing a lot of other things. So there is the capability, if we don't like that as a community, we don't like that as a board, we are not forced into doing something. So I just want that clarified. And I want also clarified that I did have a very nice conversation with Mr. Steve Lowry, who's going to be directing this. He, for a long time, he has a long history of being in the Stockton School District, which was not the easiest district probably, with a lot of things that were going on in the era that he was there, that he had experience on working on a lot of community issues. So I felt very good after listening to him saying that he felt comfortable their company could come through with this, produce the product we wanted in the timeline that we have, basically given them with some wiggle room. So I'm in favor of doing this. I think we have enough time. I've been talking to some other state people saying they feel there's going to be a lot of candidates out there looking. So I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. So I'm in favor of this. So is there any other further discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote on superintendent search firm contract between McPherson's and Jacobson LLC and Kent School District. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by raising your right hand and saying nay.
Nay.
Abstentions? Oh, Wally, I didn't see your vote. Which one was it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I say aye.
Okay. Are you voting on aye in favor, nay in favor, or abstention?
You don't say You don't say favor and nay, you say aye because I'm in favor of voting yes.
So you're in favor of going ahead with the contract?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. It's kind of hard. I want to make sure we
It
do
is
that.
hard.
The motion carries. All right, we're on to 6.01. Okay. All right, is there anybody on the board that would like to pull a consent agenda item for discussion? Do you wish to pull an item for discussion on the consent agenda? Any board director? Seeing none? All right, I'll entertain a motion to be made to approve
A motion to approve the consent agenda,
all of it.
the entire thing.
I second.
Discussion? I call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as written, 6.01 through 6.05, signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Extension, or abstention? The motion carries. All right, we're on to 7.01, and that's informational October 2021 financial statement.
So I have a question, a general question on when, at some point, our agenda changed, and so we're not getting monthly financial statement updates, and I don't recall why.
I can have Executive Director of Finance, Mr. Ben Rare, come up and answer your question.
Good evening, members of the board.
Evening.
I don't have an explanation for you about how often presentations are set up on the agenda. I contribute to that conversation, but I don't necessarily make that decision.
Okay.
I can tell you that I'm happy to provide all the presentations
Yeah.
that you require.
It's just I don't, again, I have concerns about how, because I don't recall taking a vote or having a decision to change the agenda. And, you know, I've made no secret that I'm concerned about last year's budget. Our expenditures exceeded our revenues, and so I'm of extra concern on just making sure, particularly with the fluctuating attendance and how that impacts our numbers. So I think personally, and again, it takes a majority of the board, but personally, I would like to see monthly financial updates myself. So I don't know how my other board directors feel.
I know that I've heard from the community some concerns that we don't vote on the budget every month, but I don't know what the process is, like what other boards do, or if that's something that's necessary. So I know I've just gotten questions about it. So I don't necessarily know beyond that. I know that we're supposed to be fiscally responsible as elected board members, and I don't know if we necessarily need a monthly presentation, and a monthly report would be good, but this one's from October, and I know that the documents we get aren't always the most up to date, like last month, but that's just kind of my head as community members are feeling a concern, because I feel like this is similar to what's happened in the past. I have faith that we are getting everything we need, and that we'll be alerted if there's anything of great concern, but also, like, I'm not an accountant. I'm an elected board member with not a lot of financial experience, so I just want to make sure that if there is anything that we need to know, like sooner rather than later, so if community members have any questions, I can refer them to the proper place.
Excuse me, President Hamada, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Vela, Ms. Nantello, if I may for just a moment, perhaps Executive Director Rarick, you could speak to the board about the difference between the budget status updates and the financial statements and why they appear differently. That might be helpful as well, and then they can have a conversation about what they would prefer and what they might like moving forward.
Sure, I think that would be helpful to clarify your terminology. So typically what happens is at least once a month, you do receive financial statements. And historically, to my knowledge, historically, we have made those informational. And board members have asked questions if they've had them, but there hasn't always been a presentation associated with the financial statement. As we get into the winter and spring, and I think, I don't know if this is written down anywhere, but it's just kind of been practice. You start to receive budget status updates. Those are, for those of you that have been on the board a while, those are the PowerPoint kind of formation. That's the form and structure of those presentations. For a while there, we were doing them essentially every month from January through the end of the, basically through your June board meeting. Part of the rationale for that is that the information that we report on the revenue side for the months of September, October, November, December, those are all estimated figures, and then OSPI starts to give us actual real reconciled data starting in January. So the other factor is that you receive a couple of fairly significant financial presentations as opposed to reports, right? Presentations in the fall. Mm-hmm. One of them is, we gave you that very robust enrollment study and presentation, and I think it was October. Then you had the levy presentation in PowerPoint. Then you had the bond sale. And then you had the year-end financial report, all of which were, good hour-long presentations. So just want to reinforce with the board that I'm not an issue of willingness. I'm willing to present whatever and whenever it is desired. If you're looking for some sense making of how it's gone in the future, I think that it does make some sense that the budget status updates would tend to be after January, because then you're really starting to get information that is more real and actionable. And the fall tends to concentrate on year-end close information from the prior year, and then sometimes information about certifying a levy or running a bond, business actions of the board that require like adoption of a resolution. But again, I am open to, I'm sure Dr. Harmon is open to direction about a particular cadence that you might find more amenable.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, past, years, and to me, it just seemed like we had more budget status updates. And so I'm just trying to, again, maybe I'm the only one that has concerns, but I'm pretty frugal, and as soon as my revenues aren't as much as my expenditures, then I start to want more oversight, personally. So, but if I'm not the only board director, so it's the majority of the board that would have to decide that.
I appreciate the update about the differences of what you're talking about. That lets me kind of, in my head, a little bit know what to expect. Again, I still feel, even though I've been here for a while, I still feel like I'm new when it comes to some of this stuff. So that's good to know that the financial statements are generally different than the budget status updates. Right. And, but for me, yeah, that was just my question. So I really appreciate the discussing of the difference so that we can kind of be aware of what those
And
are.
to be clear, I'll do anything the board wants. It's not a problem.
Director Farah, Director Clark, do you have any discussion, as long as our discussion, I guess? Director Farah, you're...
I honestly, so new, I don't even know what questions to ask other than looking at the number. So I like to learn more before I start asking questions.
Fair, very fair. Director Clark, do you have any discussion you want to add?
Well, I think the part that needs to be considered is there are significant flows of money in different categories, but they are smaller amounts of money, and they don't tend to fluctuate unless there's something really unusual. So in a monthly report, I would like to obviously hear about state and federal money, and then any unusual money, grants, whatever, that might show up. And then in expenditures, anything that's unusual. But I don't need to get down into debt load and the rest of it. That probably should be done on a quarterly basis, because we do obviously have to keep track of it. But what I'm asking for is a slimmed down monthly review.
Okay. Well, this was on our calendar as informational. I think the discussion is valid, but I'm not sure how we handle that tonight. If we change, I don't think we can change that tonight.
If I might just add, President Hamada, this is informational. That's how it came up, and as I mentioned in the 2x2s, that's purpose. And so what we're listening to now, like Director Clark just shared, some desire, so it's not a discussion, it's an informational at this point.
Okay. And I don't want to diminish what Director Bettinger is saying either, so maybe we can revisit this at another time. Sure. Does that sound like a plan to you, Director Bettinger?
Yeah,
okay. Fine. All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Eric, I appreciate that. And we're up to 8.01, final communication from the audience. And as I recall, we don't have any. Is that correct? Just okay, just gonna double check here. And now we're on to 8.02, board reports and discussion. And first up on that is you, Director Clark.
Okay, first of all, obviously in terms of the multiple parental input earlier in the meeting, it's very clear that the fiasco of testing is making it difficult on all levels within the district. I think most of you are very well aware of the fact that's a national problem. It's not a Kent problem, it's a national problem. And it doesn't help with the speed of something like Omicron when you're trying to deal with variances based on what the county public health department lays out in terms of what you should be doing. So I don't want to diminish what the testimony was. I don't doubt anything of what the people were saying. The catch here is the assumption that rapid tests are readily available, and that simply is not true. And so trying to pretend that in fact we could remedy this if we just went to another vendor is not practical at this point in time. Clearly they're trying to ramp up nationally. If I can, just in an observation, I watched our district athletic director trying to deal with the fallout from that series of wrestling tournaments that sent COVID back into schools all over the county. And it was extremely painful to watch him trying so hard to coordinate with other districts and with health authorities, trying to find a viable way out of that. And the simple fact is, we don't have all the answers. And I guess I'm just asking if the community will be patient with this. We're trying to get through this as well as we can, and trying to keep the schools open, and trying to find a way to help those kids that basically are isolated. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. We're on to Director Bettinger.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us online, being safe. That's kind of what I expected tonight with the surge going on. Just a personal shout out to Lindy Barron, who called me on Christmas Eve because my son had a close contact And I was like, she was working on Christmas Eve, trying to do her best to try and make sure that people knew that there were close contacts, and I really appreciate that. So just a personal note. And I know there are other staff members that worked over the holiday equally trying to address this. And you know, I've been thinking it's a new year. I think I always, in January and September, I always think about new things. And you know, no individual board director can take action. So, you know, I always like to review too the laws and policies governing our role as a board director, because I always think it's a good reminder. And so, you know, one thing this board has never done, even though it's part of our law and policy, is to set vision on things. And you know, COVID hit in March of 2020, as Interim Superintendent Vela said, and it changed the world. And back then I said, gosh, the board needs to set some vision. That's our responsibility, vision, accountability, things like that. And these most recent challenges just point out that this is an ever-changing situation. And I am, you know, just even hearing what Director Beno has just said tonight to me, that, you know, about working so hard. I know that our school staff is working triple, double, quadruple time, and just hearing the comments and things, you know, I hear it loud and clear. They don't really want just thank yous. They want acknowledgement that they're going through a lot. And I think probably every employee in this district wants that. And that acknowledgement, you know, through as much support and assistance as can be given, right? As they navigate their own health while, you know, trying to cover for absent colleagues and doing their best to help our students. And I'm worried for our families. And I've heard them struggling, and through public comment and things like that tonight. And, you know, they're doing their best. What I really hear is they're doing their best to follow the guidelines too. And, you know, and different testing is hard right now. You know, I had friends that got rapid tests in Renton. That's what Renton's doing, is they're delivering rapid tests. Because they asked me, and I just went on Renton's website, and they did rapid tests, and they were able to send their child to school on January 3rd because they had a rapid test, because they were kind of concerned. So, you know, and then we had inclement weather mixed in that whole mishmash. And again, that's something the board has never discussed or provided vision around. So, you know, in addition to these most recent challenges, I also look at our board work, and I looked at our goals last year, which we didn't achieve any of them. And, you know, when we talked about the contract, that was something that, you know I raised the alarm in August that we needed to get moving on that RFP. But one board director cannot do that. You know, I do my best to publicly share concerns and reminders and tasks, and I've been pretty unsuccessful sometimes in inspiring, you know, the whole board to take action on things that maybe just concern me. But then I started thinking about the Washington State School Directors Association talks about how, you know, school board directors are kind of like, if you think about it, a district as a ship, and they're up in the crow's nest setting the direction, and the superintendent is in the wheelhouse, you know, driving the boat. And so just using that kind of image and vision that I've heard at WASDA, you know, I think sometimes, I know I personally, and I get concerned that we're seeing maybe things floating in the water that concern us, and we spend a lot of time on those things floating in the water, or individual directors might feel responsibility to take care of something individual floating in the water, when really, you know, that is something that we all have to, at least a majority has to agree on, and that's by just fulfilling our roles by law and policy. And so in my time on the board and in my observation, because I, you know, came to almost every board meeting, you know, I just think we have an opportunity this year, which I hope we'll take, to set a course and not focus on things that aren't necessarily our responsibility, that are floating in the water, but we have to set a vision. And it's probably even worse and difficult for staff if we're all on a board, you know, pointing at things in the water that we think personally need to be fixed. And so I'm doing my best to change my own behavior on that, and just make sure that, you know, it's a majority of the board that wants something. And just to add to that, it's literally illegal for any board director to take action or set a vision or a course without getting consensus from the majority. And, you know, it's in addition, it's illegal to have, you know, phone conversations or private work sessions or serial meetings or emails about these things. So our district policy, you know, notes that as trustees for the community schools, the board is responsible and accountable for vision, structure, advocacy, and accountability. But we have to set the vision first. And it's the intent and purpose of state law RCW 28A 150.2030 to guarantee that each common school district board of directors, whether or not acting through its respective administrative staff, be held accountable for the proper operation of their district to the local community and its electorate. So my hope for this year is that this board can work together and fulfill our job to provide vision, structure, advocacy, and accountability in these key areas that are outlined in our policy 1001, which is adopting policy, planning and assessing short and long-term goals, authoring and reviewing the district strategic plan, acting as the liaison between the community and the district, hiring and evaluating the superintendent, advocating for students, the school district, and public education. So that's my own personal commitment to make sure that I'm, you know, focused on that our roles and responsibility for law and policy, which is that vision setting, structure, advocacy, and accountability, and not getting people distracted by trying to just point out things in the water that need to be taken care of when it's not. I think, could be distracting for staff and difficult. That's why I'm trying to be conscious of making sure that, you know, it's a majority of the board. And, you know, so much time has passed and, you know, we've been treading water. And, you know, so like I said, that's my hope for this year. But again, it takes a majority of the board to participate in that hope. And so, but it is a new year. And that's just been what I've been thinking about. So I thank everyone who's reached out to the board. I know it's been frustrating. I thank all the staff. I know it's been hard and frustrating. And I know you've been working triple overtime, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Bettinger. Director Farrell, it's your turn.
Thank you all. First, I want to say thank you to the staff and say Happy New Year. We haven't seen each other since last year, some of you. I just want to make sure that this year, 2022, that we exercise kindness. Kindness to each other, kindness to others, kindness to the community, kindness to the staff, kindness to every aspect, because we have bigger challenges that we all have to be rowing in the same direction in order to solve this. I just want to make sure that I say that. Last Friday, I was looking forward to visit some schools for the first time. I canceled it because I tested positive on COVID. And I'm so glad that I decided to cancel, because at the time I decided to cancel, I didn't test myself, but I had the symptoms. So it is imperative that sometimes when we have the symptoms that we don't go into other places and we isolate ourselves. The comments that the parents are giving us, for me, it has value. I will always listen. I will always make sure that I hear the community. It is how we get information. Some parents are louder than others, but that's how it works. Those who can come forward will always come forward. during, WASDA, I learned to, one of the themes that they always had was being kind. So I just want to reiterate that being kind is what we need to be to each other. Because this COVID requires stop, go, change, pivot, and all other adjectives that you can use. And that in itself needs us to be on the same boat, rowing the same direction. I'm committed to do that, and I really want to thank the staff. The hard work they do every day, it's immeasurable. And thank you again, and see you later.
Thank you, Director Farah. Director Benner?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to start with kudos, like I always do. Thank you for joining us online if you're watching us on YouTube. Again, thanks to the staff. And again, I know staff need more than a thank you, but many thanks to the staff and the hard work that's been going on in all levels. And again, Happy New Year. And I also do want to thank the Bezos Academy for the presentation, even though I'm unsure how I feel about it at this point, but I'm glad that I got to hear some information and ask questions and voice concerns. I mean, that's what the board is. That's what we're able to do, and that's how it goes. I always like to talk about things I've done. I joined one of the community virtual meetings. It's so funny, my students are always so pro me about being on this board. They think it's the most exciting thing ever. So they're just like, do your meeting, we'll be fine. And I was like, all right. So it was just exciting to be able to do that. Even though I had tech issues at first, but being able to hear what was going on. I'm very disappointed that our work session on Black Lives Matter proposal was canceled. I understand there was some circumstances, but I'm hoping it's rescheduled soon so I could put it on my calendar and that we can invite the educators of color to come work with us on that. Yes. So I know it's in the works, and I'm looking forward to a date soon. Upcoming meetings, I am meeting with the Kentwood GSA tomorrow to go chat with them and follow up. My job as a teacher, I love working with students, and I love to hear from youth and kind of hear from them how things are going, and just do a follow-up from my October meeting with them. So I'm very excited to chat with them. Beyond that, there's nothing on my calendar, but as always, I do want to talk to students and other groups. Some personal notes. This is my 20th year teaching. I think this is the hardest year I have ever done in my entire teaching career. I thought someone said, Joe, wasn't your first year teaching most challenging? I was like, no, I had mentors. I have no mentors this year to navigate me through all this mess. And last week and even some this week was very challenging. Having so many of my colleagues out, so many of my students out, and I appreciate hearing the report of what's going on. And I'm glad that there's district staff work going to the schools to help cover classes, but ultimately that's not their jobs. And we have a staffing crisis. And I know that we want to keep students in schools, and I know families want students to be in school and not online. I know there's families that want students on. We were never all going to agree, but what I think we can agree on is that this work that we're doing is not sustainable right now, and we're going to have a lot of burnt out staff if we continue this. And I saw a report online about how many teaching certificates have been given out in the last 10 years in Washington, and the number has declined so much. And I wish I can find that off the top of my head. It's in my email somewhere, but I was surprised at how few how that's gone down the past 10 years. People don't want to enter our profession, and that's concerning. So I feel like almost every meeting I talk about the Teacher Academy and hoping that we're going to do stuff like that to get students interested in the profession early and get people interested in all the careers and education that we have to offer. So that was, for me, it's just like, wow, it's been hard for all my colleagues. I saw more tears from colleagues and not students than I have in a while. And it's just been a challenge. And I think that thanking people is fine, but it's hard when I have to cover people's classes. I don't get a planning period. I was late today because I was doing lesson planning and grading because I have no time to do that. And and parents are concerned, why aren't grades updated, and students have scholarships due, and they need grades, and this is not sustainable. And so I recognize teachers, staff, what's going on, and I feel you, and I hope that we can remedy this situation very soon. And I know that a thanks is not enough. I understand it's very challenging. And that doesn't even include student behaviors, lack of lesson plans, when staff are out for emergencies. Like there's a lot. There's a lot. And if you haven't been in a class lately, I mean, there's something to do. I am concerned about COVID testing and the testing sites. I've heard a lot of concerns from families about lines and lack of tests, and I know probably the weather interfered with that a little bit too, and I understand we have to have our athletes tested. I feel like there's a lot of things we can do to kind of remedy what's going on with that, so I look forward to the change in that and how we're going to address it. I'm always like, don't be a problem. I tell my students, don't be a problem identifier, be a problem solver. So it's like, okay, we've identified it. What are we going to do next? Like, it's good to identify, great. Doesn't do anything. So what are we going to actually do based on the concerns that we're seeing and we're hearing? I know the first week back was challenging because of weather. And again, I remember leaving my house in downtown Renton and driving to school when I got the call that Kent was going to be delayed then canceled. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So I understand communication, but again, I would like to hear what the communication plan is moving forward. And I know that the rest of the week it was better, so that made me very excited. And dang, that rain and James Street was closed. And I feel bad for Mill Creek, and I hope that there's a plan in place to deal with Lake Mill Creek. Or the pool at Mill Creek, I don't know what to call it, but it's pretty bad. And I know it's been that way for a while, but I'm looking forward to seeing what's gonna happen with that. The last couple things I'm gonna talk about is communication I've gotten from staff and community members. And I know I've already addressed this with administration, but I'm not big on banning books or censorship when it comes to library or reading materials. And I know that there's been some targeted campaigns to remove books that are LGBTQ friendly and age appropriate for students. And I just kind of want to put that out there. And I feel like that there's a huge conversation, and this is an opportunity for the Kent School District to walk our talk and not just talk the talk and do nothing about it. And hearing some of these attacks about families like mine that like we're perverse or we don't matter, or like it offends people and whatnot is offensive to me. And that there's staff in our district who say that families like mine are offensive to teach about in grades. And I think about that because I heard a story about a 6th grade health class talking about doing a skit where two boys acted like a gay couple adopting a kid. And it was very quickly stopped because it was offensive. And it was reported to families, and families were concerned that that was offensive. And I'm not gonna call the school out or whatnot, even though I want to, but that's not the point, because if we're gonna do this work of equity, we definitely have to walk our talk. We can't just have it on a website. We can't just say, like, this is what we do. The work has to be there because students and families like me live in this community. I'm on this board as a gay man. Things like this really hit me here when I hear that. And so for me, and having support and documentation that family sent me, oh, this is what this Edley said, like, oh, that doesn't matter, we're gonna pull that because we don't need to adopt until 2023 when the R90 stuff passes. And I'm just like, well, there are queer families that are here, and it's not 2023 yet, and all of our families need to be represented in the curriculum as long as it's age appropriate and appropriate to what's being taught in the subject or the class. And so I'm thinking about that and how we target families that look like mine because we have opinions about political opinions or beliefs or whatnot. But ultimately, the power of the public schools that we represent the community, and that the community is all of us. So the materials that we teach, the books in our library, the lessons that we have, the skits that we do, the clubs that are in the schools like the GSA at Kentwood, all represent the community and the lovely color and the diversity of colors that live here. That rainbow of everything and everyone that is part of this community, and that what we do in the schools need to represent the beauty that our community is. And so I want to put that out there, that this kind of work is important to me and definitely stuff I think that needs to be addressed, and that we need to be sensitive to the families that live in the community, that send our schools or their students to our schools, and the staff that work here, and the students who are LGBTQ who go to our schools, who want representation, that they want to feel validated for their lives that they have, and not be taken away because someone has an opinion about themselves. And so for me, I just want to put that out there in this report, that we need to do a lot more work with equity. I think we need to, whatever the situation was, and again, I only got a piece of it, but it sounded like there were some upset students and upset family members. And just thinking about this and just talking to my students, like the day we got back from break, just having conversations, doing circles with my students, and just checking in. And the students want to be heard. The students want to feel validated. The students want to be represented. They want to go to a school and feel safe, not hear any microaggressions, not experience racism or homophobia or transphobia. They just want to come to school and learn and be themselves. And I think that we need to do that. And I think of the work that I do, specifically in my union with the Rainier Educators of Color Network. I'm on the core team, and we're planning a conference that's coming up in February. It's our annual conference that we plan that looks at anti-racism and how we can support students. And I really recommend that educators come to this and check it out. And it's a great opportunity to kind of learn and be a learner and kind of figure out what we can do as educators, those of us who teach in classrooms, to figure out what we can do to make sure that our classrooms are always going to be safe spaces for all students. So I know I was kind of winded, but I'm feeling kind of passionate right now. So that's the end of my report.
Wow. As they say, that's a tough act to follow. Thank you, Vice President Bettinger. Just kind of piggybacking on your conversation, I think I've mentioned this several times, but my daughter is a teacher and has been a teacher for 25 years. We were talking on the same subject about, and it seems to be that the kids don't seem to care a lot about this. It seems to be the parents that seem to get involved in worrying about all this so much. So if there's any silver lining behind this, and the conversations with kids that I've hauled all over the country from different backgrounds and different races and creeds and sexual orientations, they seem to be very accepting and very understanding. And as Director Barr said, kind. Just being kind. I think today that if somebody calls me on the phone and just is kind to me, I'm just shocked anymore. And then that never used to happen to me. So there are words of wisdom here for us to pick up on. And just going on, I want to wish all of you a very happy New Year. Before the New Year, I had a great privilege of taking my little granddaughter and my daughter to Beauty and the Beast. Oh my gosh, what talent our kids. I mean, this is not the first time I've gone to some others, but again, it reminds me of, I've gone to plays and had the privilege of going to plays in Fifth Avenue in New York, and I went to an actual play in Germany when I was there. And the quality of that high school play was the professional quality. I mean, I've seen them, and I just was amazed. And when they say, what are you doing with these schools anymore? Just look at that. I mean, there's just one small example, and some of the kids in our sports that have still kept playing and kept doing. And I'm reminded of Travis Tran. I don't know how many of you remember him. He was a student at Kent Meridian High School, and I still keep track of Travis, of what he's doing. And I'm amazed. He's in Wall Street, and he's doing all this stuff and got all these degrees and all these credentials, and now he's going to start up his own company. And he's a product of Kent Meridian High School. So we're doing great things in this district. We are doing it, and sure, we're making mistakes. It's with all that's going on, every day I turn around and there's something different. Every day I try to find something that easily I could have gotten at a grocery store and it's not there. And I go like, what? Where is this? It's a different world. And what have I been up to? Starting in January, I attended, first of all, Director Beno, Vice President Beno and I had a 2x2 when we set the agenda for this particular meeting. And I attended both virtual levy community conversations for our community, and I plan to be on the one tomorrow. The first one didn't seem to be very well attended by too many community members that I saw. There were, I think, about 24, but a lot of it was staff. And the last one was a little bit more lively and more conversations and some different faces that I haven't seen in our community on there. So I was a little encouraged by that, but the attendance still is not really what it should be for these community conversations. So I'm looking forward to Thursday, but they are offered, they are available, and you can get on. And there was about a half an hour on each session. In one session, I think we even got off because there wasn't enough questions, that people could get their individual questions heard one-on-one. So that is an opportunity. And since I've been on the board, one of the major jobs of the president is answer all the email communication. And since I took office, I've answered 50 emails and numerous phone calls and texts. So I try to set aside a time to do that every day. Again, I want to shout out the great play that was done and that leadership. And I'm looking forward to the Martin Luther King celebrations that are coming up and seeing all that. Was it last year or was it 2 years that we had it live? Maybe it was 2 years ago. It was so good live, and I think last year they did it online, but that's quite something to see that coming out of the schools there presenting that, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's a lot of opportunities for things that are going on this month to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday and all that. So I hope everybody's taking advantage to get some education, not only this month, but every month on those issues. And of course, I mean, it goes without saying, shout out to our staff. I mean, again, I'll mention this again, my daughter of 25 years, I talk to her every day, even though she's from afar and she's ready to quit. And that is a girl that has tons of energy, who has loved her profession, and she's ready to walk away every day. And we have that conversation about, how am I going to get through the next day? And of course, she finds the passion and the energy. So I hear that not only from my own family, but I hear that and see that in teachers. And not only that, paras and our bus drivers, they're putting their, I mean, I heard online where one of them had to walk a kid way up the street when it was the last one on the route or something, and got off the bus, walked it clear to its door because it was so dark and everything, and went that extra mile with how long it took them on the icy roads to get them home and stuff. So we do have a staff that's out there trying their very hardest and their very best. And on top of that, I know our community members are stressed. I tried to put on last week when we were going to have our first board meeting in person an N95, which they tell me somebody of my age, even though I'm vaccinated and all that and boosted up, that I need to wear an N95. I couldn't wear it for 20 minutes. I was claustrophobic and everything else. So just having to wear all these masks, the kids having to wear all these masks, keep them on, keep them distance. I mean, the lunch, really, they should be all eating outside in the rain, I guess, to keep it perfectly safe, but that's not happening because there's no way you're going to get through a lunch without kids in this new variant probably contacting something. So the only good news on that is the variant is decreasing if you are vaccinated in what's happening. And that to me is a good sign that it's becoming less and less a horrible, horrible disease, which to some it still is, and kind of working its way out to maybe if we vaccinate and try to do stuff, it will eventually go away. And I'm told I've been talking to one of my scientist friends that he figures about another week and the curve is going to go down a little bit, which in this area could be good news, or anything like that would be good news. So I hear all that and I see all that, And I've been on social media quite a bit, probably more than I should, and seeing all the things that parents are going through and everything. And I take it all down. If there's anything I can pass on to people in our staff and our district and our superintendent, I do that because I want our community to be heard, and that's one of our jobs. And I still worry terribly about everything tonight. I thought, I'm going into a building where I could probably pretty easily catch something. Should I be online? And then I thought, I can't do that. If I'm asking staff, and I'm asking teachers, I'm asking parents, I'm asking bus drivers to go to work, I need to get grown up here and walk in the building. And so here I am. And anyway, I found that not only have we had the COVID incident, we've had weather problems, and I live up in an area where we're the last people to get any help on our streets or roads. And it's icier and heck up there, and it's been some real challenges, but just listening to the people that are out at the wee hours in the morning checking our streets to see what's happening, and then to have the temperature one day be okay to send kids to school, and the next hour it drops, changing the circumstances. And how can you predict that? These are things that are just incredible. And I just wanted to, there was a report that came in just before I left the house from one of the things that we put up on our, one of the things that was put in place even before I started on the board, and that's our Citizens Financial Advisory Committee. And they were started to kind of help the community even feel more engaged in our budgets and issues that we were having. And I want to quote this from a letter from Paul Bogle and Michael Lewis, who are chairs of that Citizen Financial Advisory Committee, and they're getting in a position to come and report to the whole new board as a whole. So I'm excited to hear about their citizens report, and they're also going to put that dashboard into place that also be another guide with our budget. And so we're listening and trying to do everything for our citizens and with our citizens to get the information out about our finances. And I want to quote this as what their committee found, is we have found solid integrity, reliability, and transparency of information as presented with our thorough analysis and understanding of the financial data. And quite frankly, these people have been dedicated to the work for quite some time, so we owe them a voice of thank you. So if you ever see some of these people on the committee, and it's a pretty diverse committee, please tell them thank them. And I just want to kind of conclude here that a tree with strong roots can withstand the most violent storms, but the tree can't grow roots just as the storm appears on the horizon. And I have seen over many, many years in this community that I've worked with and that I care about so deeply, the tremendous good in our community. And we have strong roots here. I've seen us pull together to feed people that didn't have enough food. I've seen clothing drives. I've seen donations. I've seen community of schools bring in kids that can have Christmas that never had Christmas before because of our community. Fill the bus that's full of supplies for our kids, and it just goes on and on and on. So if anything gives me hope and everything tells me that there is a future to all of that we're going through here, is the strong roots of this tree in this community. I've seen it, I've experienced it, it's real. And that's going to get us through a lot of stuff here, and hopefully we'll see that silver lining to all of it. And I want to thank all of you for staying with us. And at 9:04, I think that brings our meeting to an end. Meeting is adjourned, and we're now going going into the exempt session at 9:04. Thank you.